Well, there are thousands and thousands of economists out there, not all of them competent, so of course there are just about as many economic schools. Keynesianism, Marxism, neoliberalism, the Austrian school. Now we have something called feminist economics. Studies have shown that marriage is one of this country's most potent anti-poverty weapons, so it's not surprising that government encourages marriage with various benefits, including those emanating from the tax code. It's been that way for a long time. But Michelle Holder, an assistant professor at economics at John Jay College in New York City, says those benefits ought to be abolished because certain groups have low marriage rates, and it's wrong to express preference for something not shared across the board. Michelle Juando is vice president of legal progress at the Center for American Progress, and she joins us today. Michelle, it's great to see you.
Hi, Tucker. Thanks for having me.
So feminist economics, I've never heard of that. I didn't know that feminism could be applied to science. Is there like feminist thermodynamics? Is there a feminist view of gravity? Like, what does feminism have to do with it?
I'm sure there is. I mean, essentially, what we are thinking about is how do we put different views in place, right? And so we talk about economics, but we don't often think about all of the views that should be represented. And actually, at our event, what we were really trying to think about is, are we meeting the needs of all families today?
Okay, but you're not suggesting that, like, the actual, I mean, economics is not, I'm joking, is not real science. It's like made up, it's like psychology. A lot of it's just totally made up. But you're not suggesting that feminism could be applied to the hard side. Like, is there a feminist biology? Is there a feminist theory of gravity that's different?
I think we're focusing on kind of the term as opposed to really looking at the issues.
I'm just kind of joking.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So the question of marriage, I mean, I don't really think anyone disputes that when people are married, they're far less likely to be in poverty. In fact, it's the single most consistent marker for being in poverty is a broken family. So why would you in any way want to encourage that?
So I think marriage is great. I've been married to my very good-looking husband for 11 years, and I hope we have 50 more. But I think what we are really trying to look at is, are we doing the things necessary? Do we have policies to support all families? The reality is there are about 8 million grandparents in this country today who are raising or helping with their grandchildren under the age of 18. We have about 26% of families are led by single mothers who are raising children. And do we have policies to support all families?
Let me ask you a question. Do you see that as good or bad? If a quarter of all families are led by single mothers, I think an honesty policymaker would say that's a disaster. That's the beginning of the end of our society, and it has really obvious consequences like higher imprisonment rates, lower high school graduation rates, more malnutrition, more poverty. Those are really kind of beyond debate. So when you see that number, does it make you sad, or do you think that's okay?
Well, what I think is that we don't look at the reality of how families are composed today. So let's think about this. 64% of mothers are breadwinners, okay? About 42% are the sole or primary. But yet we don't have policies in place like paid family medical leave or adequate child care. So how are we really talking about caring about families if we don't look at all of the needs of families?
By the way, I'm not in any way for excluding anybody or being mean to people
and neither
or judging them.
Right.
But as a matter of social policy, which is what we're talking about, and the tax code is part of our social policy.
Correct.
Can we start it on the same baseline? Can we acknowledge that when the majority of kids in a community are born out of wedlock, that is an unequivocal disaster? That's not good in any way.
Well, I think what we should say is that all families deserve to have support.
Right. Okay.
Right?
No, but that's a bumper sticker. Let's get to the core issue, which is something that wasn't the case 50 years ago. In many communities, the majority of children, not just black communities, a lot of white communities in poor areas, the majority of kids are born out of wedlock. That is a disaster. Can you say that with me?
So what I can say is that all families deserve to have
policies. But why wouldn't you? Hold on, but why wouldn't you say that? Since we know that single parenthood leads to these terrible outcomes, why wouldn't you say it was bad?
You can look at Ben Carson, who is your HUD secretary, and he would say that
I grew up in a single parent household for part of my childhood. Look, no, but over
so
time,
I think the fact is, if we have policies
not an answer.
that speak to all of our needs. No, it isn't.
You're dodging it because
okay, Tucker, let's say this.
Is it preferable?
Are we prepared to say that we want to support all families or not?
No, are we prepared to stop with the bumper stickers and the slogans and get to real answers?
That we should support all families.
But what you're doing is being a hack and giving me a fake answer. Support all families.
What I'm saying is the reality of where we were 50 years ago is not where we are today.
Do you think?
So if we are thinking about grandparents,
all right, I give up. I give up.
Don't give
up. This is why nobody takes the left seriously,
because
this is an actual issue that cuts across races and cuts across the whole country.
Exactly.
And it's a disaster.
This is not a partisan idea.
But you don't admit it's a disaster
this president
because they vote
and
Democrat.
his daughter saying we have to do something about it.
Well, they're wrong.
We agree.
They're wrong
we
if
agree.
they don't see this as a
They're
disaster.
wrong that we should do
Trump
something
and his
about
daughter are wrong if they don't see
medical leave.
single parenthood on the scale we see it now as a social disaster,
Tucker,
because it is.
Tucker, I think we need to say that faith without works. We said it in James.
Right.
We need to make sure that we're protecting and taking care of all families.
Let's
do that.
As you know. Michelle, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a piece of tape that we were going to wait till Friday to show you, but it was too great. People often say Fox is the strongest name in news. There's another contender for that title. Stay with us, please.